Listening to the Money Mike syndicated radio show. We're going to keep you up to date and current in all sports. We'll make sure you're aware of everything in corporate and enterprise business. And most of all, we'll share with you how to make a little more money as we cover the NBA, the NFL, and Major League Baseball. All colleges, and you stay tuned for the Money Mike syndicated radio podcast. How we doing? We got another one for you. We're going to talk a little bit about Caitlyn Clark and the WNBA collective bargaining agreement. And that's what I see that is hitting the desk today. And it was a little shocking to me. I'll bring it to you. The WNBA, as I ran the report yesterday, speaking of the WNBA players and how they're speaking about fans, and how they're going about, and also speaking about racism. But I had to take a deeper dive. Whenever I see something like that, I start digging deeper and deeper, and I try to find the root cause of what's really going on. Well, what's really going on? The racism is one aspect, but the WNBA and the women of the WNBA are now going into collective bargaining. Now, when you say, Money Mike, what do you mean collective bargaining? The WNBA signed a new contract just a little over 4 years ago. And when they signed that new contract, here's what you got to understand. There were some terms and there were some things negotiated in that contract, but the WNBA is facing a bigger battle. When you face the bigger battle, here's what you got to understand. Everything you do when you go into contract negotiations. Now, if I had my way, I'd probably say, hey, well, let's just let Caitlyn Clark do all the negotiations for the entire WNBA. But that would be wrong to do. And because you got to have the experience, you got to have the leadership, you got to know what you're doing, and they got a valuable, powerful leader. Because what took place with the WNBA in the NBA, this one's strange, folks, and I couldn't understand what was going on or how it was going to happen and how they decided, okay, this is what we're going to do. And it left me kind of shocked. And here's why. Because you got a situation now that the WNBA players just 4 years ago, okay, they entered into this, and here's where I'm going to go with the bombshell. And this one, the reason why this one's going to be really, really hard for the WNBA, and it's going to be hard on the NBA, okay, because the NBA is about to get a rude awakening from the WNBA. So understanding you got the racism, that's just one little part of this negotiation. And it took me there, and I had to say, okay, wait a minute, I'm going over this revenue. But before I go over the revenue, let's get back to who's leading the charge, right? Because you got the WNBA, okay, is got Terri Jackson is going to lead that charge, right? You know what? She's no stranger. I guarantee you that. She's no stranger to the WNBA and negotiations and how she looks at it. Because when you get to Terri Jackson, and you're talking about a powerful figure here, folks. You're talking about a powerful figure. Why am I saying you have a powerful figure? Because you got two individuals that she is associated with that they know the WNBA well, very well. This one here, I'm telling you, I'm backing up, so I want to cover this correctly. Okay, you got Miss Jackson's got a son, Jaren Jackson Jr. Okay, you got Jaren Jackson. They call him Jack, right? He's call him Jack in the NBA. Okay, had a good time with the Warriors, played in there. Good player. Went overseas, played, just outstanding player. Okay, you got Terri Jackson, graduates from Georgetown. Okay, and you got Jaren Jackson Jr., right? Plays for the Memphis Grizzlies. So Miss Jackson's no stranger to what's going on. And when I started digging deeper, I said, okay, what's the problem? Really, what's going on? And I try to go down deep, folks. And let me try to tell you why I go down, because I kind of mentioned some things to you. I don't go down to the player level. I try to stay above the board. I try to look at what are the issues that the players may have. Could be in the National Football League, could be in Major League Baseball, could be in the NBA, and definitely couldn't be in college. So, and I try to dig those out and try to find an underlining issue, because I'm looking corporate enterprise business. You can look at it and say, well, let's see. Why are they losing money? Why do they keep saying they're losing money? And why is the WNBA still producing? Why are they saying the NBA is saying the WNBA is still losing money when they're producing so much revenue? I figured it out, folks. They went in there and in the last collective bargaining agreement, and Mrs. Jackson, she's going to know this. Terry Jackson is the executive, right? So when you run down through it and you look at it, you got to look at this collectively and you got to say, okay, what's going on in the leadership division and how does this all work for the WNBA? Because all of this is relevant. And you got Caitlyn Clark, as I mentioned, Caitlyn Clark. Somehow, I don't know how they can do it because you're talking about a rookie. But somehow I think you've got Boston and Katie Lou Samuelson are currently the representative alternative for the Indiana Fever. Each team has a player rep, but you got to also look at, when you get in there, what are you going to do and how you're going to do it? Why do I say utilize Caitlyn? Okay. And before I cover over the leadership, why do I say utilize Caitlyn? Because the NBA, you know what? No matter how Miss Jackson lays it on the table, okay? And you're talking about NBA players. So when you talk about the NBA players, how they collect the bargain, they're hardcore. They're 50% revenue split, and we mean all the revenue, all the revenue. So you're looking at the players of the WNBA, and you look at the NBA, and then you get back to this agreement, right? So when they went in there, and again, the women were happy to receive what they received 4 years ago, okay? So because they were able to triple up the salaries, right? Salaries are low. They were able to move the lax salary. And this one goes back to Becky Hammond, really makes sense here with the litigation that's going on with Becky Hammond, right? Because Becky Hammond got in litigation. But one of the things that was negotiated was the fact of maternity leave, which means if you needed to take maternity leave, you get your full salary. So it shouldn't be a question. If somebody happens to have a child during the season, you can't hold it against them. But let's get back to it, and let me show you why I think the racism is only a part. And as the league and the WNBA, you're going to be looking at an opt-out. They're going to have November 1st to opt out of their current contract. And when you opt out of the contract, let's go through what the NBA takes prior to discussing revenue. The NBA takes around 40% of the revenue. Okay, so let's put that in perspective. Now the WNBA players go out and make $100 million. Okay, the NBA is going to take $40 million. Now they're going to come down. Let's split. Let's do our 50-50 split. But we're going to do that from the perspective of the $60 million, which you get half. So that goes down to 30. Even though the ladies made $100 million, they only get $30 million of that money. The NBA share, the NBA takes around 40% of the WNBA revenue. Outside investors, okay? Remember, I brought up investors. You look at Cathy Engelbert. You want to look at what Cathy Engelbert's out there doing? She's soliciting investors, right? Because they want to get the rate on the return, ROI. Outside investors such as Nike, okay? Nike's not just a sponsor. Nike's deep up in this and an investor. And NBA owners get roughly 20% of the WNBA revenue share. Players share. Players receive less than 10% of the WNBA total revenue. This is a major, major departure from the roughly 50-50 split that unions in the NFL have negotiated. Okay, so let's back up and let's kind of woo. Can I just go woo? I mean, that one there, and when you get right into it, the NBA has been doing this to the WNBA players. They've been just slapping them, right? And you know what? I mean, I'm a huge Caitlyn Clark fan, right? I'm a hand, but I go objectively when I talk about it because at the end of the day, I get it. But, at some point, we got to settle this thing down. I mean, we can't just go in there and bash, right? You might have caught me on a little mini rant, right? That was a little mini. If you see you want to see the major rant from Money Mike, then just go ahead and see me the 49ers lose a Super Bowl game, and you're going to see a major rant. I haven't broke TVs or anything, but I've come close, right? But the racism, that's only one part. That's only one part of this negotiation. Okay, so, and really, if you got that much and you want them to fix it, you put it in the CBA, right? You're going to put it in the collective bargaining agreement.
Cathy, welcome back. Good to have you here.
It's great to be here.
You were last with us right at the start of the season, right after the draft, which was extraordinarily exciting. The season has lived up to expectations by almost every metric.
Absolutely lived up to expectations, exceeded them much more so as quickly as we thought coming off that historic draft. These rookies have put on quite a season, and it's not just Caitlyn and Angel. Rickea Jackson and other rookies are killing it this year. And then our veterans have really stepped up. Asia Wilson's having a historic season for the Aces, and Brianna Stewart in New York. So, yeah, and you mentioned all the revenue drivers. We also signed a historic media deal since I was here last.
That's right.
Long-term media deal, which was important for the stability of the league. And as people have been calling it a growth stock, we have a lot of upside.
Nico Gumake, he's going to be sitting in there. Is going to be the president. Kelsey Plum, first vice president. Lissa Clark's going to be the vice president. Collier's going to be president. Brianna Stewart, Elizabeth Williams to get down to Brianna Turner. You go team by team. You got Hillman's going to handle it. Haley Jones. These could change. The Shields, and you got Isabella Harrison, got the Chicago Sky, Connecticut, Dijonai Carrington, Olivia Nelson-Oda. You got Enrique is going to run it for Phoenix. Kalani Brown's the alternate. Boston runs it currently for Katie Lou Samuelson. Chelsea Gray, Las Vegas. Asia Wilson's going to back that up. And you got Azura Stevens going to be the primary for Los Angeles. Lexi Brown. Some of these players could be moving on the move, so this could change. You got Diamond Miller, Minnesota. Bridget Carrollton is going to come in as alternate. You got Kayla Thornton running it for New York, and Sabrina Nesky is going to come behind her. You got Sophia Cunningham and Natasha Cloud. They're going to run that out. You got Victoria Vivians. You got Joyner Holmes. And you also got Steph Dolson's primary in Washington, Leah Edwards. Now, your question is, Money Mike, why are you telling us all this? The WNBA and the NBA are going to have a very large fight. The WNBA and the NBA are about to have a large fight. The WN was very happy about the negotiations of the last contract, but here's the deal. Here's where my concern goes. You know, you can give somebody a new contract, and I'm going to fight and advocate for the women, okay? Doesn't matter any color, black, white. I don't see color. I just see women, right? But at the end of the day, you do have the majority of the women are African-American, okay? And you got the executive directors African-American. So you have the NBA and the women, and what they negotiate is below the poverty line. Now, if anyone can tell me, because we've got a lot of intelligent fans, and to the fans, I really enjoy your comments, and I know we got a lot of intelligent people out there. Here's my question. The women negotiated something below the poverty line of getting the movement. Now, no one, their hands were tied. Let's be honest. The WNBA hands were tied. Okay, they couldn't do anything. They couldn't negotiate any better. That was the best. The negotiation may have run dry. Okay, so in the last 4 years since they've negotiated that, now what did they do? They negotiated an 8-year term. Okay, the way the collective bargaining agreement works is this is the year they can opt out. What does it mean? They can opt out of the contract. And, you know, when they do the collective bargaining agreement, okay, the NBA is smart. I mean, they're going to put everything in there to block the women from being able to have any type of voice, okay, which means they can't walk out. Now, if, you know, racism is a bad thing, if that's really happened, the players could walk out as a strike and say, fix it or we're not playing. However, there's a no strike clause in that, okay? So basically, you know, the way it works, and you've seen it in Major League Baseball, you've seen it in NFL, the players either walk out or get locked out, right? They either walk out or lock out. And then sometimes they come in replacement players, right? And they put the replacement players on the floor to keep the season going. In this case, the WNBA has a short season. I think the NBA hands are tied. I really do. I think the NBA hands are tied on this one because the cat's out of the bag. And I kept trying to understand, how can you be losing money? Okay, and it's almost, I'm not saying it's the same, but it's almost like a music contract, right? So the NBA says, hey, we're losing money. They're making an announcement. They're losing money, right? But it's not losing money. This is basically a loan to the women. So this is like a music contract where if somebody goes perform, we're going to count all the expenses. You spend whatever you want. You spend $2 million. And then when it comes time to pay you, well, our contract says you get paid $2.1 million. Okay, if you hear me. So the ladies come out of that with $100,000, right? So you're on the backs of the women, right? Okay, now it kind of makes sense as I start doing a little bit more homework, digging deep, okay, for the fans and whoever's there. And here's when I dig a little deep. Now, Caitlyn's a rookie. Okay, Caitlyn Clark's a rookie in this whole thing. Okay, so she's not experienced enough as far as the negotiations. However, there has to be a role or a message that Caitlyn Clark does send out, because I know deep down in the heart, Caitlyn Clark's for the player. She's a player, right? And the thing you have to realize when you play in this league or you play anywhere else, all the players have played against each other for a long time. They might have been playing against each other since the 7th grade, 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade. I mean, they all go to the same exposure events. They all compete, right? So this Caitlyn kind of knows a lot of the players, and majority of them. But, she's a rookie. And, rookies, this is a little bit above their head because the fight between the WNBA and the NBA, this is kind of a 28-year fight because the NBA, you helped us, but you also have your hands in our pockets, right? And what does it do? If the NBA has got the hands in the pockets, then it hurts the fans, okay? So you talk about yesterday, I kind of went in of how the players speaking out, but now I got a discovery point because the NBA is really hurting the fans' growth of the WNBA because that money can be used to market their players. But if you take in $100 million gets made and you take 40%, there's nothing more beautiful to me, okay, than seeing the horses get out there and run and they compete and they go out there and they're really good, right? But when you get into the horse racing, and, I always give you a good movie. One thing I'll give you is always a good movie to relate it to, right? I'm going to talk about a little Penny Cherry, right? You got Terry Jackson, executive director. You got Guma K, running president. I mean, they're in unity, right? They want to move. They want to move military stock in step, right? Nobody's out of step going to be in this, right? So you got this thing, and you got, you're ready now. Okay, the WNBA, and I'm gonna relate this to, you got the Preakness. Okay, you got the Kentucky Derby. First off, you got the Kentucky Derby. You won that, right? And then all of a sudden, you come in here, and next you got to go over there. You got to run the Preakness. Okay, and the WNBA players have won the Preakness, right? So you won the Kentucky Derby. And now you've got to go in there, and you won the Preakness. Now you got one more to go. Now this one here is going to take you a little longer, 1.125 miles, right? Now we're going to blow the lungs open, and we're going to get on out there. It's time to go run Belmont, right? Now, before I get to the Belmont, let me tell you the story because I love the story in the movie. You got old Miss Penny Cherry, right? Miss Penny Cherry, father was a legendary, passed away. And what had happened with Miss Penny Cherry, she had to go up against the big old WNBA. Okay, these were the horse trainers, the owners. I mean, the money that they had compared to the money she had. But you know what? What I like about Penny Cherry, and I watched the movie several times, I don't know, maybe over 25 times, I just love horses. But old Miss Penny Cherry stood her ground. There was a coin flip. And, everybody thought, well, this is a horse I want to get. This is what I want to do, right? So you get into it, and you get in there when you get into the Secretariat. Now, Secretariat's Big Red, right? Big Red. And they wanted to go in there, and they wanted to have everybody buy shares, right? Just like the WNBA players. You got a lot of players. Well, we need to sell a lot of shares, right? And nobody wanted to pay the price for the shares, right? But here's the deal that the moral of the story, what Miss Penny Cherry did, right? Because Miss Cherry did her homework. And the WNBA executive team's done a lot of homework, okay? And when Miss Penny Cherry came on back and she went on in there, they did the coin flip, right? And when you do the coin flip, you get to choose, okay, who's going to pick the horse, who gets to choose, and what horse you want. Well, Miss Penny Cherry looked at it, and she says, you know what, I'm going to take the women. That's what she did. That's the WNBA. Because, see, everybody was betting on the NBA, but Miss Penny Cherry, she had a different thing in mind. She said the filly is going to outrun, okay, all of those horses, right? Okay, you get the filly, that's a female horse. Okay, it's going to outrun the mares, right? Because they're the big brutes, right? They're the big horses, big, brute, strong. Man, they ain't got no chance of winning, right? So when you get through the movie, and I'll tell you the relevance, okay? Her brother said you're wrong, okay? everyone else wanted Penny Cherry to pick a different horse. Penny Cherry did her homework and says, I'm going to take the filly because the filly's got endurance. And what the WNBA players and executive teams about to show you, they got some endurance, okay? They got some endurance, and they got the best horse in the race. Now, you added in this horse that came in, Caitlyn Clark, right? Now, but the horse has no experience, so you can't put the new filly that's just come in, Caitlyn Clark, in the middle of all this. But this is a horse that everybody thought Secretariat is going to lose. But Miss Penny Cherry, she did have no problem about it, right? So what am I telling you? Okay, when everybody thinks everybody's going to lose, let me tell you something about this, folks. You got Miss Jackson sitting there, graduate of Georgetown. Husband played in the WNBA. Son's currently playing in the WNBA for the Memphis Grizzlies. I think she knows a thing or two about the WNBA. I think she knows a thing or two about the Adam Silver, and I think she knows a thing or two about the numbers and the revenue. But when you're taking 40%, now think about this. You're taking 40% revenue out. Well, yeah, it's real easy because now you're talking about the incremental revenue, not the 50-50 revenue split. Now, let me tell you what that means. In the NFL and the NBA, they got a 50-50 split. That means you make $100 million, players get 50, owners get 50. In the WNBA, the split this is a banana split, if you ask me. I'm for the players. I'm an advocate for the players. I believe in the players. I just want the players to go out first class, right? Because when you get to this negotiation, owners are smart. Whatever you do wrong, they'll hold it against you, right? They're going to hold some things against them. So this thing that the WNBA players are doing is first part of negotiation. This negotiation is a big negotiation. This is going to be the biggest in the 28-year history of the WNBA, okay? And you got some people in there going to hold ground. I predicted the WNBA would see a lockout, okay? Why are you going to see a lockout? Because the numbers don't make sense. You can't make an announcement we're losing money, but the investors are taking the 40% cut before we even pay a bill. The gross is $100 million, okay? The net revenue becomes 60 because they're taking 40%, okay? Think about this, okay? Players share, and when it gets right down to it, let me tell you how bad this is. This is bad enough that Caitlyn Clark needs to be involved in a different way because if Caitlyn's going to stand for the players. Let me just say you that now. Caitlyn has always been for the players. She loves basketball, knows these girls, been playing around. Yeah, they beat tough, but that's not her agenda, right? She's got a different agenda. But Caitlyn's going to stand with the players. Now, the NBA, you got Secretariat. I'm going to repeat. To the NBA, you got Secretariat now is in the WNBA. Who's Secretariat? That's Caitlyn Clark. Now, you've had a lot of great horses. You've got some outstanding horses. You got some horses that, man, oh, man, let me tell you something, they can be. And you know what? Secretariat had competition. The owner was so cocky. If you guys haven't seen the movie, go watch Secretariat because the owner was so cocky. But Miss Penny Cherry, she stood her ground, and she told one time had a jockey came to her, and that jockey started telling her what to do. They even had the trainer say, mind your business. She said, everything around here is my business. When you get to Miss Jackson, everything around here is Miss Jackson's business, right? So you got to know that, folks. Miss Jackson is about the women, okay? Married to Jared Jackson, played in the NBA, not a few years, a whole lot of years, right? Got a son in the NBA. Been at the draft there with Silver. Man, they probably in daily day because she's probably got on the phone. And, sometimes when you get like Miss Penny Cherry, Miss Jackson, Adam, I tell you what, Adam, you might not play basketball next year. And be prepared not to do that, right? Because the WNBA is not losing money. Okay, the WNBA is not losing money, guys. Okay, the WNBA has just got a bad contract that they're taking all the revenue and they're calling it incremental split. And when guys look at this, the incremental split is coming down to less than 10% of the revenue. That's why the players aren't getting paid, right? So that's what Miss Jackson's job is going to be, and she's on it. Ain't no question about it. I mean, she's She's hunting them dogs down just about as easy as you can hunt them anywhere else. She's going to find them, right? But the WNBA's got great horses. You got Asia Wilson. You got Brianna Stewart. You just got so many great horses. Seattle, you got Gabby Williams in there. I like Gabby Williams' involvement because, one thing I can tell you about Gabby Williams that I do know, I worked with her father, Matt. He was a mentor to me in the game of basketball, and he showed me some things in the game of basketball I'd never seen. I mean, we did the whole EYBL tournament. And the EYBL is a Nike EYBL tournament that they put on for the grassroots pro basketball player development, right? So I got all these college coaches. They fly in. They come on in Sacramento. You got Calipari, Lorenzo Romar. You got everybody, Miller from Arizona. And all these guys got 100-pound Rolex watches, right? And these guys came in, and you know what the funny thing that happened that weekend is we got all these guys coming. We ran out of jet fuel, right? Because all these guys got private planes, right? You got Coach K. The one thing about Coach K is above everyone else, okay? Coach K wanted his own room. He wanted his own suite at a recruiting event, okay? He does not want to be disturbed. He does not want to be bothered, okay? He wants to sit there and evaluate by himself. While all the other guys on the other room are all sitting there, and they're looking at this, and they're communicating. And one of the coaches, I want you to remember, Indiana, Chicago, in your area, it's going to be Shaka Smart, right? I got a great relationship going there. My best buddies, his mentor, Dr. Thomas Reed, was the athletic director in the Hall of Fame of College of DuPage in the Midwest. So Shaka, keep your eye on Marquette. I believe he's going to win a championship. You can spin it 100 different ways, whatever you take it. I'm with you. But at the end of the day, Caitlyn Clark's the Secretariat. Now, the Secretariat, the owners can't say no to, right? So somehow they got to negotiate and work with Caitlyn and figure out how Caitlyn's voice, because, at the end of the day, if Caitlyn, Caitlyn wants everybody to get paid. So I'll really tell you, she is a Secretary. But the WNBA and the NBA, going to walk out, okay? And when you got Caitlyn and all the players unified on the walkout, because they know when Caitlyn goes, that's it, right? Because that's like their daughter, okay? Believe it or not, for the NBA owners, Caitlyn Clark's like their daughter, right? For the WNBA owners, believe it or not, you won't hear their owners speak about it because Caitlyn Clark's going to be like the daughter, right? Because WNBA owners want to make money, okay? There's no doubt about it. And the Simon family wants to make money. Lynn Dunn kind of went over that. And so you get right back to the crux of it. It still takes me back to where I got to go. And I'm going to tell you this because this story is going to keep on going. It's going to keep on negotiating. And you're just going to have to figure out what you're going to do, because at the end of the day, okay, this is about a negotiation. And negotiations go several different ways. But we got to look at it. How's this one going to go? And what are we going to do? You got it. This is the Money Mike Syndicated Radio Podcast. I'm feeling good. I hope you're feeling good, too. We're getting into the fall and the winter. But let's take it down and let's ride it on out of what I have discovered. And that's right. The NBA takes about 40% of the WNBA revenue. Okay, and that's gross. That's not net. That's not after expenses. That's before expenses. Leaving the women, that's right, 40% of its own revenue. NBA share, NBA takes 40% of the WNBA revenue. Then you go a step further, the outside investors, that's right, you got Nike and NBA owners. So you got the NBA is in there for a 40% cut. You got Nike and the NBA owners, they get a 20% cut. Okay, so they're just chopping up your pie. Okay, and if you ask me, I'm not going to get too deep in it, but this looks like boxing. Okay, it looks like somebody's fighting for a heavyweight or a middleweight or a welterweight title because the split, man, it's off, right? This is the Money Mike Syndicated Radio Podcast. To you ladies, I'm going to advocate for you. And here's what you got, the player share. See, because by the time everybody gets their cut, the players receive less than 10% of the total revenue.
Listening to the Money Mike Syndicated Radio Show. We're going to keep you up to date and current in all sports. We'll make sure you're aware of everything in corporate and enterprise business. And most of all, we'll share with you how to make a little more money as we cover the NBA, the NFL, and Major League Baseball. All colleges, and you stay tuned for the Money Mike Syndicated Radio Podcast.